while there's a degree of truth in the image of the Wild West explained in the previous section, it's also been exaggerated in American culture. It's been overplayed, and I'd like to explain that in this section, the way it's been overplayed. Most cowboys were poor, and major crime tended to follow the money, which of course in this era meant the mining West, not the Great Plains. The reason the Wild West maybe has been exaggerated so much says as much about the rest of the country at the time as it does about the actual Great Plains in the late 19th century. The image people had of the West was celebrated in the eastern industrial cities. And that's because life there was pretty bleak. It was people were jammed into tight living quarters, their lives seemingly dominated by the clock and the demands of the modern age of factories. And they had less free time, they felt less control of their destiny, and therefore they enjoyed hearing stories of the cowboy out in the West. They would live vicariously. Here's this cowboy on the open plains, a star above his head, dependent only upon himself. It was kind of the antithesis of their life, and they liked to hear stories about that. And so they celebrated this image of the West. The West became popular in the eastern factory industrial towns, almost immediately as romantic legends began to build. First, there were the dime novels, so-called because they were cheap, only 10 cents. They were great. They weren't any great, literature, but they were, they were fictionalized westerns. They exaggerated real events, and they became the rage in the East. Most famous were the 33 Deadwood Dick novels by Edward L. Wheeler, where the hero wore black and rode a black horse. William Cody was a Western frontier and scout, but he was a better entrepreneur. He realized the demand for all things westerns back east, and he helped form the first Wild West show to bring it to them. He had began, with a play about his life in the West, but he expanded it. He began to form a traveling show that combined the circus and the rodeo, and he started doing this in 1883, and they would go from city to city setting up huge tents, and they'd have displays of horsebacks and shooting. Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West shows were hugely popular, contributing to the image of the Wild West. They employed little Annie Oakley as a marksman, and she shocked people because she could shoot a coin out of the air and really challenge the sexist stereotypes of the day and age. And for one season, Buffalo Bill Cody used Geronimo, as I'd mentioned. Buffalo Bill Cody became really famous, and he was almost an international figure before he died in 1917. In any event, when movies began to be formed, they, of course, as I say, began to focus on the Westerns, and the Western as today lives on, and we have this image of the Wild West. That concludes the section on the myth of the Wild West.